Very warm welcome to Amishakil 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Following are the latest news headlines which have been reported by American, European, Canadian, Asian, African, and Australian news channels and all other news agencies. So please, let's go to the news.
Tonight, there is breaking news just as we come on the air. There are tornado watches across multiple states right now. We'll go to Ginger Z. Also, an F-18 fighter jet falls from a U.S. aircraft carrier right into the sea. First tonight, multiple tornado watches at this hour. Severe storm alerts from Texas all the way to the northeast. Possible tornadoes, dangerous thunderstorms. Ginger Z times us out into the evening hours. Also tonight, that U.S. F-18 falling into the sea. The Navy reporting the $70 million fighter jet plunged off the USS Harry Truman, sinking into the Red Sea. How did this happen? Tonight, the deadly collision. New video showing the moment authorities say a boat slammed into a crowded passenger ferry in Clearwater, Florida.
Mayday, mayday, mayday.
The boat then leaving the scene. The horrific SUV attack in Vancouver, plowing into a crowd. Tonight, the suspect now charged with murder for the deaths of 11 people, including a 5-year-old girl. Tonight, President Trump's first 100 days in office. What Americans are now saying about the economy, inflation, and his promise to end the war in Ukraine on day one. The massive blackout across parts of Europe tonight. People rescued from elevators, hundreds evacuated from halted trains. American tennis star Coco Gauff being interviewed when the power goes out, sharing an image in a dark locker room. Tonight, the Vatican preparing for the secret conclave to elect the new pope, when it starts and how long it could take, and what we know already tonight. James Longman standing by at the Vatican. Back here in the U.S., the historic church destroyed by fire. The church with strong ties to the civil rights movement and to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Tonight, Beyonce giving a sneak peek the major tour that starts in the U.S. this evening. Also, Cyndi Lauper making news tonight, and 45 years of helping to make wishes come true. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Local and federal authorities team up to make hundreds of migrant arrests in Florida. Operation Tidal Wave leading to the capture of nearly 800 illegal migrants in the span of just 4 days. Florida law enforcement working hand in hand with ICE to get the job done. And Governor Ron DeSantis praising the joint endeavor on X, saying Florida is leading the nation in active cooperation with the Trump administration for immigration enforcement and deportation operations.
This is something else, and this video goes on and on. This is 3 a.m. Sunday morning, Colorado Springs. In the end, there were about 300 people inside, about 100 said to be illegal, arrested over the weekend. Massive multi-agency raid at this underground nightclub. Rob Murphy is the principal deputy administrator of the DEA, which led the operation. Rob, good morning to you. Nothing good happens at 3 a.m. I want to read you the president's post on X. I want you to tell us everything we need to know. Here we go. Big raid last night. Some of the worst people illegally in our country, drug dealers, murderers, other violent criminals of all shapes and sizes. And judges don't want to send them back to where they came from. If we don't win this battle at the Supreme Court, our country as we know it is finished. It will be a crime-ridden mess. Make America great again, end quote. Rob, take me to Colorado Springs. What happened? Why the raid? How was it carried out? What was the net result?
Good morning, Bill, and thank you. Yes, 3 o'clock Sunday morning, this club was well known to law enforcement. We had numerous complaints over the last 2 years. Violence, everything, drug trafficking. We knew what was going on there. We expected to find mostly illegal aliens inside the club. So there was a planned investigation for over a month. DEA did surveillance, controlled buys, everything else to develop what we needed. We knew that there was going to be armed personnel inside, security personnel who were actually active duty military. So in the planning of this, we have a pretty dangerous operation. We expected anywhere from 200 to 300 people in that club. There was over 200. We showed up pretty strong. All of our law enforcement partners, DEA, every federal agency, a lot of state and locals, and we made sure that we were able to contain safely everybody in there. Not everybody was in there doing illegal things, but the majority were. It resulted in about 115 illegal aliens that we've identified so far. And there were 17 active duty military, some of which were working at the club as armed security.
Rob, this could have gone sideways.
Tonight, 99 days into his second term, and the president facing new headwinds. The president digs in on immigration, signing new executive orders targeting sanctuary cities, the backlash over removing children who are U.S. citizens. It comes as polling falls in his handling of the economy and tariffs, and as shoppers see prices rise and rise on some major online marketplaces. Plus, exclusive access inside an El Salvador prison where Kumar Abrego Garcia was taken when he was transferred out of that maximum security facility. 36 million under the threat of severe weather. Al Roker is tracking that. The investigation into a deadly boat crash in Florida where one of the boaters left the scene. The crackdown on deepfakes and nude images generated by AI. Can a new law stem the scourge?
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. It is something every modern-day president faces, the measuring...
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Maurice Dubois.
I'm John Dickerson.
Tomorrow is day 100 of President Trump's second term, and more than half the Americans CBS News polled told us that is enough time to judge his administration.
So, here is how they judge it. 45% approve of the job he's doing, 55% disapprove.
And on the number one issue of the past election, the economy, 58% disapprove of the way he is handling it.
For one thing, 63% told us they believe Trump policies, which include tariffs and a trade war, are driving food prices higher.
Those are some of the perceptions of the economy and of the president on the eve of his 100th day.
For a ground-level view of the economy, we sent Janet Chamlian to the heart of America, Elkhart, Indiana. Janet?
Good evening. They have seen this before in Elkhart, living through the financial crisis of 2008. So right now, people are questioning every decision.
ChatGPT and Canva like children's toys. Here's how to use them right.
To the people over 40 who don't know how to use AI, tomorrow morning.
On this Monday night, honoring the victims of the tragedy in Vancouver. The troops killed at the cultural festival and fundraisers for their families. Thanks to those killed at the cultural festival and the fundraisers for their families. It is election night in Canada.
It's going to be close.
The battle for supremacy between the Liberals and Conservatives, and how victory could come at the expense of the NDP. Plus, without power, what's caused electricity to fail across Portugal, Spain, and parts of France. Good evening and thanks for joining us. After a campaign unlike any other, voters are choosing who will represent them in Canada's Parliament. All the party leaders have cast their ballots. Liberal leader Mark Carney in his Ottawa riding and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre right next door in his. The Bloc Québécois leader and the NDP leader are vying for third place, and the Green Party is hoping to hold onto its 2 seats. After 35 days of campaigning, it all comes down to what choices voters make today. We begin the...
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. At least 68 African migrants have been killed in a U.S. airstrike in Yemen. Houthi media outlets report the U.S. bombed a detention center in the western province of Sada. Another 47 migrants were injured in the attack. A separate U.S. attack killed at least 8 people in the capital, Sana'a. The Pentagon says it's carried out 800 strikes on Yemen since March 15th after Houthi fighters vowed to resume targeting ships in the Red Sea in an attempt to pressure Israel to end its war and blockade on Gaza. In Gaza, Israeli attacks have killed 23 Palestinians so far today after Israel forces killed at least 53 people Sunday, including 6 who were killed when Israel bombed a cafe near the Nuseirat and Burej refugee camps. Meanwhile, the World Food...
Good evening, I'm Amna Navaz.
And I'm Jeff Bennett. On the News Hour tonight, nearing 100 days in office, the Trump administration pushes further on its immigration crackdown, deporting families and targeting sanctuary cities.
Peace negotiations falter between Russia and Ukraine over the war that President Trump promised to end on day 1 of his presidency.
And people with disabilities speak out about the impact potential cuts to Medicaid could have on their daily lives.
What's at stake first is my health. And, if you don't have health, you don't have life.
Change will time, but we will
will fight for that change, and we will deliver that change, and we will never give up on fighting for the great Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street protected by our brave troops under our proud flag. Canada first, Canada always. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much, Canada. Merci beaucoup, Canada.
Yeah, that was the Conservative leader conceding defeat there in this election, Pierre Poilievre, insinuating that he will not step down, he'll continue to fight. Let's go live now to our US correspondent, James Matthews, who's been at Carney HQ all morning for us. He joins us now. James, just give us a sense, first of all, of the mood of the night that you've experienced. Good morning to you.
Yeah, hi, good morning to you. And you hear the party, you hear the music behind me, and there's something like 200-300 people gathered here. It was 2-3 hours ago when the national broadcaster CBC called it for Mark Carney, and there were cheers inside here. Every now and again, flashing up on the TV screen are pictures of him and his wife watching the results coming in. We're expecting him to appear here in something like 20 minutes, and of course, we can broadcast that winner. I suppose if there is some disappointment, that disappointment is that it looks like it could well be a minority government, not the majority that he craves. So that will test his political acumen, an acumen that has been well on display and that has carried him to high office, because he's the candidate who tapped into the national booth, styled himself as the anti-Trump candidate, and that harnessed the sense of national unity, a response to Donald Trump's tariffs and to his threat to annex Canada as America's 51st state. So Canadians, they wanted change. They had grown tired of Carney's Liberals, but that will change with Donald Trump and Canada.
Hello and a very warm welcome if you're just joining us. You're watching Daybreak here on France 24. These are our top stories. Power returning to Spain and Portugal. Questions, however, remain as to the cause of the massive outage that left millions without electricity, trapping them in trains or lifts. Hospitals left to run on emergency generators. The party of the current Prime Minister Mark Carney comes out on top in parliamentary polls in Canada. The centre-left Liberals gaining support as voters reacted to threats from US President Donald Trump. However, it looks like it will be another minority government. A 3-day break in its offensive on Ukraine to mark the end of World War II. Russia announces a planned pause in its attacks and said it's ready to talk, but that Kyiv needs to accept that Crimea is part of Russia. Ukraine has said it will never do that and calls the temporary break in bombings clear manipulation. Glad you could join us. Well, also coming up in this hour of the programme, Emily Boyle will be joining us for the press review, where she'll be going through coverage of the power outage in Spain and Portugal, and she'll be discussing a new report published by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists about China's repression of activists overseas. The lights and electricity come back on in Spain and Portugal, but still no clear reason for the massive outage that left hundreds of thousands of people trapped in trains or lifts, struggling to get cash or to call home. The serious disruption hit millions of people and cost companies highly. While authorities at the EU say there was no sign of any cyber attack, Portugal's electricity operator says a sudden change in temperature is to blame. Spain's Prime Minister says they're ruling nothing out.
It's Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Rani Samtani. At this hour, Canada's ruling Liberal Party on track to declare victory in the federal election, giving Mark Carney a full term as Prime Minister. Votes are still being tallied, but local media are projecting it will form a minority government. A North Korean military delegation heads to Moscow a day after Pyongyang for the first time confirmed the open secret of its troop deployment to Russia's Kursk region. The visit comes as President Vladimir Putin announced a unilateral 72-hour ceasefire in Ukraine to mark Victory Day next week. And power slowly being restored across parts of Spain and Portugal after a sweeping blackout disrupted transport, communications, and daily life for millions. Authorities have yet to determine what caused the mystery outage. Canadian media is projecting that the Liberal Party, led by Mark Carney, has won the country's general election. But local media, CTV, says the Liberals will fall short of the 172 seats needed to form a majority in the 343-seat House of Commons. Projections show the Liberals in the lead with 160 seats versus 152 for the Conservatives. Mr. Poilievre has not conceded defeat. It's worth noting there are 3 smaller parties also contesting this election. The poll was called by Prime Minister Carney, who is seeking a fresh mandate after succeeding Justin Trudeau last month. The Conservatives
and ABC iView. Today, Canada's ruling Liberal Party projected to win government after an election campaign dominated by Donald Trump. The police officer who shot dead the Bondi stabbings attacker tearfully details the confrontation at an inquest. A jury is selected for the murder trial of the alleged mushroom killings. And the major parties target marginal seats in Queensland and New South Wales in the crucial final week of campaigning. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ros Childs. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and the Liberals are projected to win the country's election and form government. It's still unclear whether they'll have an outright majority. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation projects that the Liberals are on track to win 156 seats in the House of Commons, but will need 172 to form a majority. We spoke to our North America correspondent Carrington Clark from the Liberal Party's headquarters a short time ago.
This is an extraordinary political turnaround. This party was on track at the end of last year for a drubbing at the upcoming election. There was a real sense in Canada that they wanted to change, to turn the page over from this Liberal rule, which lasted almost 10 years. Instead, the rise of Donald Trump in the United States completely changed the political calculation here in Canada and has changed the political map. The current leader, Prime Minister Mark Carney, a former central banker, I see getting excited as more results come in behind me. Mark Carney took over this party just last month. He was a complete political novice. He's taken control of this party and now he's actually won a seat for the first time. He will now be in Parliament and leading this country.
Africa News. Africa News. The news.
They survived the deadly blast, but now dozens of these migrants are in dire need of medical attention. At least 47 people have been wounded and 68 were killed in what Yemen's Houthi rebels said was a US airstrike on a prison holding African migrants on Monday. A historic hold for the Houthi rebels.
Israeli strike on the Gaza Strip overnight into Monday killed at least 27 Palestinians, according to local health officials. A strike hit a home in Gaza City, killing 7 people, including 2 women. Another bombing late Sunday killed at least 10 people in the southern city of Khan Yunis, including 5 siblings as young as 4 years old.
Countries spent a record $2.7 trillion on arms and weapons systems last year, the fastest rise in military expenditure since at least the end of the Cold War in 1989. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute says that the figure shows an increase of over 9% from 2023. It said Europe spent the biggest on the military, fueled in part by the war in Ukraine. 7 to an estimated $314 billion. It's the tech giant by content moderators who say that they suffered psychological distress from reviewing and taking down disturbing social media content. They work for Majorel, an Accra-based company contracted by Meta to screen content deemed to breach community standards. The workers say that they've suffered from depression, anxiety, insomnia, and substance abuse as a direct consequence of their work. They say that mental health support given by their employer was insufficient and that their pleas for help were ignored. Teleperformance, the company that owns Majorel, disputed the claims, according to The Guardian. It comes after more than 100 Facebook content moderators in Kenya were diagnosed with severe post-traumatic stress disorder caused by exposure to graphic social media content.
In the Bavarian town of Pang, about an hour southwest of Munich, 180 men in traditional short leather pants and embroidered suspenders competed Sunday in Germany's 64th National Finger Wrestling Championship, known as a finger hacken, thought to have originated in the 19th century as a way to settle disputes. It's always been portrayed as being super dangerous. You're going to rip something and so on. Of course, there will be open wounds and small injuries on the fingers from time to time. It looks worse than it really is because there's blood. But within a week, at most after 10 days, all wounds are healed and you start training again. Sunday's event crowned champions across different weight and age categories. Germany currently hosts 9 clubs, while Austria boasts another 4.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Have a good life. Bye-bye.